Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This is a deeply unprecedented time, and it is a time that it calls upon all of us to protect and support those who are most vulnerable. And protecting vulnerable children has been at the heart of the government's response. Many members have spoken tonight, this afternoon, with great passion, and I do welcome this opportunity to explain the work that the government has been doing for vulnerable children. Every child is different, and different children are vulnerable for different reasons, and therefore we've been setting up networks of support across the country for different groups of vulnerable children. For some vulnerable children, especially those with a social worker, attending school is an important protective factor. And that's why schools, colleges and early years providers have remained open for them throughout. And when they've not attended, we've worked with education settings and local authorities to make sure that social services are in touch with these children. We've been surveying those local authorities, and the vast majority of the most vulnerable children, those with a child protection plan, have been seen or contacted by their social worker within the past fortnight. Children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities always face extra challenges, and this has been a particularly difficult time for them and their families. So we've asked education settings to ensure that those with education, health and care plans can attend their normal school and setting, but that has to be on an individual risk-assessed basis to make sure that the child's need come first. So we've also provided a wide range of specific online resources so those staying at home continue with their education, and we've committed £37 million this year through the Family Fund to support more than 75,000 low-income families with disabled or critically ill children. £10 million of that is specifically in response to this pandemic. 39,000 adoptive families have had extra help from the increase that we've made to the Adoption Support Fund. And across the country, our loving foster carers have been able to access extra help from the increases we put into the fostering network. Care leavers are particularly vulnerable and often face isolation. So we've made it clear that those who are due to leave care can stay in their current home. We've provided over £100 million of laptops and devices to care leavers and disadvantaged children so that they can stay in touch and access social care services as well as education, putting care leavers and children in care first. Teenagers in alternative provision are especially vulnerable. So we are wrapping those in Year 11 in AP with a bespoke package to support them not only now but through next year too. For those suffering anxiety, we've increased mental health and wellbeing support and guidance for children, teachers and parents. We've invested in mental health charities, and crucially, we've ensured that the new 24/7 mental health crisis lines are available to children as well as adults. Domestic violence impacts on children. So we've worked with the Home Office to invest in specialist services and enlarged Operation Encompass, which brings together police and schools. We've funded the expansion of the NSPCC's and helped promote its national helplines so people have a place to go if they are concerned that a child may be experiencing abuse or facing neglect. Our See, Hear and Respond project, led by Barnardo's, will further support vulnerable children at risk of harm. This is just some of the work that we have been doing, and a massive amount of work has been undertaken. And I'd like to thank parents, teachers, childcare providers, social workers, foster carers, our partners in public, private and charity sectors for all they're doing to support children. And actually, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'd like to thank children and young people themselves, especially those in care and especially those in children's homes. Yes.
Minister, very kindly for giving way. Can I gently nudge the Minister to answer some of the questions from this side of the chamber, because I know that she's halfway through her speech and not yet have we heard about the children affected by these changes.
Answers. Protecting vulnerable children relies on those on the front line, especially children's services in our local authorities. And so we've supported our local authorities with additional investment, helping social workers return to the front line, deploying more than 250 Ofsted staff directly into local authorities and through new regional teams. But those on the front line have faced challenges that they have never seen before, and I've heard directly from many social workers about those challenges. And hence, we have needed to give them some regulatory flexibilities. Yes.
Minister, thank you. Would the Minister be able to explain why it is that the easements from statutory duties are therefore lesser, the standards that need to be met are lesser for children than they are for adults? And will she address the question that many have put to her, that we should be publishing data on local authorities using these easements so that we can scrutinise what's happening on the ground?
And I will address many of the points that have been raised tonight. But specifically, the safeguards for adult social care are different for children's social care, because the statutory framework for adult social care differs, and the easements that have been made on adult social care are in primary legislation, not in secondary legislation, whereas in children's social care, we have absolutely made sure that the primary legislation stays in place. Now, let me continue, if I may, just to set the scene a bit more. Just hold. There's children, those on the front line have faced challenges they've never seen before. First of all, for those children with special educational needs and disabilities, and especially those with an EHC plan, that sets out the specific provision that must be needed to meet their needs. And normally those provisions would happen in an education setting. But whilst those settings have remained open for children with an EHCP plan, not all of them have been able to attend, and therefore it's simply been impossible for local authorities and health commissioners to deliver the full provisions of those plans, and that's why we've needed to make some changes. Regarding the regulations on children's social care, these are intended to support local authorities and providers, but do not remove any fundamental protections. Let me be really clear. Section 22 of the Children's Act remains. Local authorities still have a duty to safeguard and promote the welfare of any child they're looking after, and Section 1 of the Adoption and Children's Act remains. The child's welfare is paramount in all decisions on adoption. We've made no changes to primary legislation, and the vast majority of secondary legislation has remained unchanged. The amendments do not reduce the responsibility that local authorities have towards protecting children from significant harm or promoting their welfare, nor should they be at the expense of the rights and protection of children in care.